Curtis in Pentonville and the shadow of what happened to Drew. Let us start with Pentonville and the history that makes Curtis's arrival there so much more ominous than a standard prison storyline would be. Drew went to Pentonville not because he had done something terrible, but because he loved someone and chose to absorb the consequences of her choices rather than let her face them alone. He went in as someone who was genuinely good, if complicated, someone Port Charles recognized and valued and trusted. He came out different. Not different in the way that all incarceration changes people, but different in a specific way that has been unfolding across this entire summer. More willing to hurt people. More comfortable with cruelty. More capable of using his daughter as a weapon in a war against the people he has decided are his enemies. What happened in there to produce that transformation is now becoming relevant again. Pentonville was not a clean or well-run institution during the period Drew was incarcerated. There was corruption at the administrative level, wardens on the take, the specific kind of institutional rot that allows people with money and power and connections to operate inside those walls in ways that have nothing to do with serving their sentence. And sitting at the center of all of that was a man who had made himself essential through a combination of fear and resources and the specific kind of ruthlessness that thrives in environments where the official rules do not apply. Drew was beaten. In the shower, like so many stories of prison violence that happen in that specific and unwitnessed space. The injuries were real even if they did not produce the kind of physical damage that shows up clearly on a brain scan. Something changed. Whether it was the physical trauma, the psychological experience of having been targeted and hurt in a place where he had no protection, or something more deliberately administered, some kind of manipulation or conditioning that was applied by people with agendas, the man who came out was not the man who went in. And now Curtis is in there. With Jens. Jens, who before his arrest had sworn revenge on Jordan specifically. Jens, who has now lost everything publicly, his organization dismantled, his assets frozen, his freedom gone, but who has demonstrated throughout this entire summer that he is not passive simply because his external circumstances change. He was a threat from inside a cell before his conviction. He is more dangerous now because he has nothing left to lose and everything to settle. Curtis is Jordan's person. Whatever complicated forms the relationship between them has taken across the years, whatever the current state of things between them and between Curtis and Portia, the connection is real and Jens knows it. Targeting Curtis, the person Jordan cannot protect, the person who is completely exposed inside those walls, is the most efficient way to reach Jordan without being able to literally reach Jordan. And here is the darker historical layer that the show is drawing attention to. Sidwell's partnership with Cullum went back more than a decade. Cullum was embedded in institutional structures in ways that extended well beyond Port Charles's visible world. There were plants probably in places where plants would be most useful, including possibly inside the very prison where Drew was incarcerated. If what happened to Drew was not simply the violence of a prison environment, but something more specifically designed, something more deliberately targeted, then Sidwell may have had a hand in it that nobody has connected to yet. Curtis asking around once he is inside, looking for people who knew Drew, trying to understand what happened to a man who went in one way and came out another, might produce answers that are more alarming than anything Curtis was expecting to find. And if Sidwell is now operating in Pentonville with the same authority that Cyrus once held, controlling information, controlling access, controlling who is protected and who is exposed, then Curtis's curiosity about Drew's transformation could become the thing that puts him directly in Jen's line of fire. The people who love Curtis cannot protect him in there. Jordan made him a promise to wait. Trina is already shattered by the verdict. Portia is managing Desmond and the aftermath of everything the trial produced. Marshall and Stella are holding what they can hold on the outside. None of them can reach into those walls and shield him from what Jens is capable of directing toward him. Curtis went into this with the belief that his innocence mattered more than the plea deal's efficiency. He is about to discover that innocence and safety are not the same currency inside Pentonville. Alexis and Danny decide to play dirty and Jack offers a lifeline. Now let us talk about what is happening on the outside, because the people who love Scout are done watching Drew diminish her world from a position of impotent righteous anger. They are moving. Alexis tried again. That is who Alexis is. She tries, and when that does not work she tries again, and when that does not work she finds another angle. She went to Drew again, and made her case for Scout's access to the family on her mother's side. Drew shut it down completely. He went further. He brought up what he claims to remember about Danny and what Danny did that hurt people, using it as justification for his position. He was not listening. He was not open to anything Alexis brought to the conversation. He had decided what the situation was going to look like, and he was not changing his mind. And then Jack appeared. Jack overheard enough of the exchange to understand what was happening. He stepped into the moment, spoke to Drew in the specific language of a man who is holding something over another man, not explicitly naming what he has, but making it very clear that Drew is not operating in a space where his decisions are consequence-free. The reminder was enough to make Drew leave. The message landed. And then Alexis asked Jack for what he has on Drew. Jack agreed. But nothing in Port Charles comes without a condition, and Jack's condition was specific. Information about Jocelyn's father's company. What it is, how it works, what Alexis knows about it. Jack is following a thread that leads through that company to something he cannot yet fully see, and every piece of relevant information helps him triangulate toward whatever he is actually looking for. Alexis having to decide whether to exchange information she has about a company connected to someone she knows in order to get the leverage that could free Scout from Drew's restrictions. That is a morally loaded choice even when the person she is trying to help is a child who is clearly suffering. She is not trading bad information, but she is trading. And trading with Jack means being in his orbit in a way that has its own complications. Meanwhile, down at the boathouse, Danny has reached the end of patience. He vented to Charlotte about everything, about Rocco getting to spend time with Scout at the pool in ways Danny cannot, about Drew's refusal to budge, about the specific helplessness of loving someone who is being kept away from you by a decision you had no part in making. Charlotte listened. And then Charlotte channeled the very specific resource that being a Cassadine gives her, the capacity to think about problems not just in terms of what is fair or right or legitimate, but in terms of what is effective. When working within the rules does not produce the outcome that is needed, you consider working outside them. That is not necessarily a cynical position. It is a practical one. And Charlotte has been schooled by her entire family history in the specific art of practical action. She told Danny that if they cannot find something real to use against Drew, they could make something up. Danny hesitated because he does not want to hurt Scout. But he did not dismiss the idea entirely. Because the alternative, continuing to watch Scout get smaller and more isolated and more quietly heartbroken while everyone around her operates from a position of moral scrupulousness, is not an alternative Danny can accept anymore. They're looking for dirt on Drew. Drew has given them some to work with over a summer full of threats and promises of destruction and very specific decisions that can be characterized in unflattering ways. The question is whether what they find is usable and whether using it produces the outcome Scout actually needs. The clock is ticking. Scout already told Rocco her life was easier when Drew was in a wheelchair. That sentence is a neon sign pointing at everything wrong with the current situation. And the more Drew keeps the walls tight, the more likely it becomes that what finally breaks the situation is something drastic rather than something managed. Scout and the cost of isolation. And finally, let us sit with Scout. Because she deserves her own full examination, not as a supporting character in her father's revenge narrative or her brother's scheme, but as a person experiencing something genuinely difficult that the show has been documenting with real care. Scout is 12 years old. She has already lost her mother. She has spent this entire summer watching her father come back from a state that she found genuinely frightening. The paralysis, the silence, the uncertainty about what he could understand and what he could not, and feeling the specific mixture of relief and complication that comes when the person you prayed to come back is back, but is not quite what you hoped for. She said it to Rocco, in the specific way that 12-year-olds say true things before they can stop themselves. Her life was easier when her father was in a wheelchair. She broke down immediately, asked him to forget it. He did not say she was wrong. He said he understood. And in that understanding, in the specific absence of judgment from the one person she can actually talk to, Scout started to say more of what she has been holding. She misses her mother's side of the family. She misses Alexis. She misses Danny. She misses the people who made her feel connected to Sam in the ways that are still available even though Sam herself is not. These are not abstract preferences. This is a child telling someone, the only someone available, that her father's decisions are actively hurting her in ways that she does not know how to fix, and he does not seem to see. The thing about Drew's love for Scout is that it is absolutely real. He is not keeping Danny away from her because he does not care about her happiness. He is keeping Danny away because of what Danny represents in the context of Drew's grievances against the people around them. Scout is collateral damage in a war she did not start and cannot stop. And the person who loves her most is the one doing the most damage.